Good morning. This is Tim Elder with the King's Report for Wednesday, October 11th, 2017. We're in the 8th year of Chungi and the 8th month and the 22nd day. I just got through doing the Korean report, and that's why I bowed my head when I started. So you may have been surprised by that. Right.
Not from you, Tim.
Not from me.
Yeah.
I'm not sure.
You're a man of many cultures.
I'm a man of many cultures. The weather today is cloudy, and we may have some rain around noontime in the early afternoon. And the temperature today is supposed to get up to 70 degrees, and then 63 tomorrow. So it's getting cooler. We were in the upper 70s until yesterday, and now we are barely making it into the 70s today, and just in the lower 60s tomorrow. But overall, though, October is predicted to be warmer than the historical average, which is in contrast to August, of course, which was quite a bit cooler than the historical average in August. And so I guess as long as it gets summer, we don't care if it's in August or October. It's not going to be like summer, but it is going to be, because right now the historical average for this time of year is in the low 60s, 61, 62, something like that. And it's been in the upper 70s. So it's been quite a bit off from that. But we're back down to the average, actually. Not today, but tomorrow we'll be back down to the average. We're still above average today. So
I'm sure it's been good for all the leaf-peaking towns in New England.
Yes, I expect
nice
so.
Warm weather.
Yeah. Let's go to our Rimas, reading first from Proverbs, chapter 12, verse 19. The lip of truth shall be established forever, but a lying tongue is but for a moment. Well, so we got nothing to worry about. So, let's go to our Chun Sung-gyung Rima. I'm in the book on true love, chapter 5, and the beginning of that chapter. We are born in love, representing God, live in love, reach the destination of love by having sons and daughters, and return to God to live with Him eternally. In other words, our life begins with love, matures with love, and becomes harvested as the fruit of love. A person's death is the point at which the fruit of love is harvested. Death denotes a second birth at the end of our physical life. The place where we have that second birth, the place where we go after death, is the spirit world. We enter that world and receive from God, who is the third parent, a supply of true love, which represents the entire universe. The spirit world is a world where we breathe love and live in love. Therefore, if you fail to develop a character of complete true love, your path to travel freely will be restricted, and you will not be able to pass through all four directions. Even if you happen to pass through a gate, you will not be able to go any further. If you want to be qualified to live in rhythm with the four seasons, regardless of time and space, you must develop a character of loving completely during your earthly life. So this is a very poetic expression of love in the spirit world, and how we need to learn to love, because when we go to the spirit world, we're going to be breathing. We're going to be breathing love, and we need to be able to know how to give love and know how to receive love in order to do that. And if we can't breathe, then it's going to be a difficult time, and that will be hell. That will be hell.
Love is an interesting term that's oftentimes misunderstood. I was talking to a friend last night. What came to mind when you're reading that is this person has quite an alcohol problem that has developed over the last 3 or 4 years, and we're planning an intervention with family members and loved ones. So love sometimes means intervention and telling a person that they've gone off the path. It's not always just accepting and being tolerant, and some people confuse that with love. And I know that's been the case with the second king too. That he's had to stand up and intervene and do difficult things. And some people say that's not very loving. So I think that word love is oftentimes misunderstood. But anyways.
Yes, thank you. That's a good point. That's right. Just acquiescing or just ignoring someone's sin, or someone who is destroying themselves and their relationships with the people around them, is not really love.
Mm-hmm.
So if they go to the spirit world having destroyed those relationships, having burned all those bridges, then yeah, that would be a difficult thing for them, and in spirit world. So it's important that we help each other learn to love.
Mm-hmm. And even if you make the choice of not intervening when somebody is sinning or doing something that's off, that's also a sin.
Mm-hmm.
The pastor I was talking to last night said that he regretted not intervening earlier as a pastor of this person. And he felt really badly about that. And I think that's another part of love, is not just, like you said, ignoring a situation, but getting involved and making that tough love decision sometimes.
Harvey Weinstein's going to rehab.
Yes, that's a good segue.
That's not where I was going to segue to, but you sort of guided me. You segued me towards that segue. But I mean, when I saw that, though, I felt, yeah, this is what Hollywood people always do when they get in trouble.
Yeah. And he's trying to garner some sympathy, I think, so he can realign his career and make millions more.
But anyway, I don't know if that was done out of love. Apparently his brother was behind this whole thing. And I think it was a Hollywood Reporter said that his brother's always been trying to take over the company. And that was why he leaked this story to the New York Times, or not leaked it because the New York Times had it all along, but sort of encouraged the New York Times to go ahead and publish it. And apparently Harvey no longer has the power to ruin people's careers, and that's why he's being attacked now. Anyway, there's I don't know if that's love going on there, but we pray though that he is God's creature after all.
Yeah, he can have an awakening.
So we pray that he can perhaps really be rehabilitated, and so forth. And maybe Trump also, his attitudes toward North Korea, maybe that's love. Huh? That's tough love. That's tough love. He sent some B-1 bombers to go over the northern limit line again, and if someone tells you that they went over the DMZ, please don't listen to them. It's this ridiculous thing that people have. The 1953 military armistice agreement agreed on a military demarcation line and a demilitarized zone on both sides of that line, but it didn't say anything about the airspace and the sea space around the peninsula. There's nothing in that agreement about that. So the UN forces, the UN command, under the centering on the United States, established a line on their own, basically saying this is the northern limit where our planes and our ships will not cross. This was not a negotiated agreement with the North. It was just unilaterally says we're establishing this limit. Please don't go beyond this line. But sometimes they do. Sometimes they do, because planes travel very quickly and a very high rate of speed, and if you're not careful, boom, in just 1 second or a split second, you can find yourself beyond that line. So anyway, the B-1B bombers were sent above that line this time, but that means that they stayed in international airspace, and just showing North Korea that if they do anything, that the United States is prepared to attack. So that's what that was about. Of course, the Columbus Day has come and gone. The 10th has come and gone. The anniversary of the founding of the Korean Workers' Party has come and gone, and no missiles from North Korea. And I guess that's a good sign, I think. We'll see. But I think, like I think I was saying yesterday, I think Trump is on a high-stakes gamble here. He called his people into the war room, presumably to talk about North Korea. And I think, and Mattis also said that the Army has to be, or the military has to be on alert to fight a war. So I think things are really coming to a head. Things are really coming to a head.
It'd be hard for Trump to back down at this point. He's kind of boxed himself into a corner in a way where he has to take some definitive action.
Well, we'll see if whether Kim Jong-un will give him that
way
pretext.
Out, yeah.
I think if he fires off a missile, then Trump will be ready to do something. I don't think Trump will stand by another missile firing. Yeah. Anyway, let's take a break now, and we'll come back with some news about Las Vegas. News. Yes, news. We'll come back.
Car Arms, Magnum Research, and Auto Ordnance. The Car Firearms Group, with a diverse product line that blends American craftsmanship with cutting-edge technology. It's no secret why gun enthusiasts choose Car Firearms Group. From the Desert Eagle and Baby Desert Eagle made famous by Hollywood, the history of the 1911 and the Tommy gun, to the best in compact concealed carry. Car Firearms Group is not only the first name in personal defense, it's a name that has earned the respect of gun enthusiasts around the world. Concealment, innovative technology, value, accuracy, and history. Car Firearms Group, made in the USA. Visit car.com today. Car Arms, Magnum Research, and Auto Ordnance. The Car Firearms Group, with a diverse product line that blends American craftsmanship with cutting-edge technology. It's no secret why gun enthusiasts choose Car Firearms Group. From the Desert Eagle and Baby Desert Eagle made famous by Hollywood, the history of the 1911 and the Tommy gun, to the best in compact concealed carry. Car Firearms Group is not only the first name in personal defense, it's a name that has earned the respect of gun enthusiasts around the world. Concealment, innovative technology, value, accuracy, and history. Car Firearms Group, made in the USA. Visit car.com today.
Welcome back to the King's Report for Wednesday, October 11th, 2017, 8th year of Chungi, 8th month, and the 22nd day. Regarding Las Vegas, I was hoping that as time went on, we would learn more and more, but actually, as time goes on, we're learning less and less, it seems. Things that we thought were true last week turn out definitely not to be true. For example, the timeline, the security guard was shot before the massacre started, not after it started. He was not the one who stopped it. And so that raises questions. Also, it raises questions about why wasn't he armed? Apparently, the policy of that hotel is not to allow their security guards to carry any kind of weapon of any kind, not pepper spray, not even a pocket knife, apparently. So people are saying, well, if he had had a gun, he could have stopped this before it started. But anyway, that's one thing. But another thing is, I think the most important thing we need to know is, was there a second shooter? Were there other shooters? Because if there were, then they're still out there. And there was something about the fourth floor at one point, but that story seems to have sort of come and gone. But now we have a guy who, you'll watch this video. He's done some pretty good analysis, and he's obviously done his homework, or seems to have done his homework. He talks a good talk anyway, and his video has gotten a lot of views. And I'd like to see some police or law enforcement authority comment on this because I think it does deserve a comment. But anyway, watch and see what you think. Go ahead, Rio. I'll play the video. It's long, but we'll play the entire thing.
All right, welcome to Forensic Acoustic Analysis of the Las Vegas shooting. My name's Mike Adams, the Health Ranger. I am, of course, the Lab Science Director of CWC Labs, as well as an avid long-range target shooter. And so I have kind of a unique position to bring you this analysis. Now, for those of you who are watching from law enforcement or the FBI, I'm going to give you the location of the second shooter. And if you're like, whoa, what second shooter? Just hold on. I'll walk you through it, okay? It's very simple. So this is forensic acoustic analysis. This is all based on downloaded video files from YouTube, extracting acoustic information and then analyzing that to pull out signal from the noise. And this is what I do in my laboratory, CWC Labs, all the time. We use mass spec instrumentation. We're doing, isotopic spread ratio analysis. We're doing organic chemistry. We're doing ICP-MS, all kinds of analysis to pull signals out of noise. So this is the kind of thing I do every day. It just so happens now, it's a shooting situation. Maybe I can help out law enforcement here. I've been critical of the FBI and their lack of transparency about their investigation, but when they said they wanted help from the public, I decided to go ahead and shoot this video to, help them out. Maybe they haven't done this analysis yet. So here we go. Let's jump right into it. First of all, let's cover some basic math here. The speed of sound at 20% humidity in Las Vegas temperatures is about 345 meters per second. I'm going to use the metric system here for a lot of this for all the obvious reasons. The speed of a 55 grain 223 Remington round leaving the barrel rifle is approximately 975 meters per second initial velocity. Now, of course, those of us who are long-range shooters, we know that velocity drops off very, very quickly, according to a chart kind of like this. Velocity versus distance. So the farther the bullet flies, it loses velocity according to its ballistics coefficient, or BC, values. Now, this is important to note. This is going to make a lot of sense. Just hang in there. Bullets arrive first on the scene. If you're standing at ground zero, the bullets arrive and hit the ground before the sound arrives of the bullets being fired from the rifles. Why is that important to understand? Because in our analysis of the audio files, and this is like an audio waveform right here, in our analysis we have to understand that the bullets are hitting first and then the rifle report is happening after that. This is crucial to understand. The bullets, remember, traveling at 975 meters per second. The speed of sound is only 345 meters per second. So the bullets are traveling about 3 times the speed of sound when they leave the rifle barrel. And at these distances that we're talking about, which is typically less than 600 yards, I'll use a non-metric unit for that, the bullets remain supersonic. So they don't pass the transonic barrier and become subsonic velocity. So they never get slower than the speed of sound. Now, flight time is very, very important to understand here. Bullet flight time is how long the bullet takes to arrive at a certain distance. Now, because of the velocity of the bullet is dropping, according to a quadratic equation, the flight time is not a linear function, so you have to have a ballistics chart. I got mine from gundata.org. So the flight time to 400 yards, or roughly 366 meters, is 0.528 seconds for a .223 55 grain round fired from a 16.5-inch barrel. Now, that's about half a second, right? 0.528 seconds. We can agree that's about half a second. Now let me ask you this question, a little homework for you. How long does it take the sound of the rifle shooting to travel that same distance, 366 meters? How long does that take? Well, you know here that the speed of sound is 345 meters per second. So you can instantly tell it's going to take more than 1 second for the sound of the rifle to arrive at the scene where the bullet actually struck the ground. In other words, the bullet strikes in half a second, but the sound arrives another half second later or thereabouts. So there's a gap. There's a difference between the time that the bullet strikes the ground versus the time that the report sound from the rifle reaches that same location. Again, see in blue here, bullets arrive first. This is crucial to our investigation. This is the forensic acoustic analysis that will give us the range of the shooter, as I'll explain. So keep following along here, please. Now, I want you to notice these peaks here. See these 5 peaks? These are the sound waveforms that represent the sounds of bullets striking the pavement. And these are high-frequency sounds. If you listen to all the audio recordings, you'll see that these sound high frequency. They have a lot of high-frequency sound waves in them. These, on the other hand, these are the sound waves of the reports from the rifle in the distance arriving after the bullets have arrived. These reports have a lower frequency sound. That's what these notes are about. High frequency sound spectra associated with the pavement hits, low frequency sound spectra associated with the rifle reports from the distance. In other words, the gunshot sounds from the distance. Now, why is there a difference in the frequency of the sound spectra between these two types of sounds? The answer has to do with the transmission of sound frequencies through the medium of air. And as this chart shows, frequency versus sound transmission is an inverse relationship. So the lower your frequency, in other words, low, dull sounds, have very high transmission over long distances because obviously they involve longer wavelengths. On the other hand, high frequency sounds, such as high-pitched sounds or multiple harmonics of sounds, have very low transmission through air. Why is that? Because they involve very small wavelengths. Small wavelengths suffer what's called attenuation during transmission, which means they get silenced or, sort of muzzled or buffered or killed off or whatever you want to say. They get reduced as it travels through the air. And this is why if you hear gunshots in the distance, they are always low thumping sounds. They're not high frequency sounds. In fact, soldiers throughout the Vietnam War and World War I and II and even modern warfare, they know that you can kind of gauge the distance of gunfire based on the frequency spectra that you're receiving in your ear. You can take a guess at how far that is away. It's not an accurate guess, and we're not relying on that, but I'm just pointing that out to you so you understand the physics. Now, I want you to listen to, I'm going to show you and play you some sounds here. So here's a combination of gunfire hitting the pavement. This is from the Las Vegas shooting. Here's the gunfire hitting the pavement, followed by the rifle reports from the distance. Here's what that sounds like. Now I'm going to play for you just the sound of rifle rounds hitting the pavement. I want you to notice the high frequency sounds in that sound. Here's what that sounds like. Now I want you to hear what it sounds like, the distant rifle reports arriving to your ear or to your recording device from a long ways away. Here's what that sounds like. Notice that it's a more low frequency sound. Now I'm going to play for you a sequence that is indicated by this, where you have rifle rounds striking the pavement followed by the low frequency sound effects afterwards. So give this a listen and then I'll point out something to you about the timing. So did you hear that? Did you hear the rifle rounds hitting the pavement followed by the rifle reports from a distant location? That's very important to recognize because what you can do is you can get the time code of those events. So you see this blue dot here? This is the time code of the last round of the rifle hitting the pavement. And then this is the time code of the last burst of the rifle report from the distance. The low frequency sound. So again, rifle hitting the pavement here, this time code, rifle report from the distance, this other time code. Notice that the rifle report time code comes after the rifle hitting the pavement, the bullets hitting the pavement time code. What you do is you subtract this time code from that time code and you get a gap. I'm calling it the lag time. This lag time might be expressed in a fraction of a second. It might be 0.3, 0.4, 0.5, what have you. What's important to understand is that this lag time, because of the laws of physics and the speed of sound and the ballistics coefficient velocity of the bullet itself, this lag time tells you the distance of the shooter from your present location. Now, I'm going to say that again because it's crucial to understanding all of this. The lag time tells you the range of your shooter. If you know the lag time and you know the bullets, the rounds that they're shooting, then you can actually calculate the distance of your shooter. And I put together a little spreadsheet here. This was done just using Excel. I just copied it over here. Distance in yards, 100, 200, 300 yards. This is the lag time that you would hear if you look at the acoustic analysis of the audio file. And as you can see, if you hear a lag time of 0.597, that tells you your shooter is 600 yards away. If you have a lag time of 0.311, your shooter is 200 yards away. Now this table is only valid, of course, for 223 Remington. It's very specific to the cartridge. So you can't apply this table to everything, but if any of you out there in law enforcement, if you want this spreadsheet, I'll be happy to send you this Excel spreadsheet, and you can modify it for other cartridges if you want. It's a very simple calculation. So again, the lag time tells you the range. Now why is that important? Here's why it's important. Because the forensic acoustic analysis of the audio file shows that there are 2 shooters, not just one. 2 shooters. 2 shooters, yes, 2 shooters. Shooter number 1 has a lag time in the audio file of about 0.559 seconds, which of course is consistent. Well, look at the chart. 0.559 seconds. Where does that show up on the chart? 0.559 is between 400 and 500 yards. See? Here it is. It's about 450 or 425 yards, what have you. What is that? Oh, that's the distance of Mandalay Bay, isn't it? So we know we have one shooter at a distance of 425 to 450, maybe 475 yards at the high end. That's consistent with a shooter at Mandalay Bay. Now, of course, we can't tell the height, what floor they're on from the acoustic analysis, but we can tell the range because of what I just showed you on the other side of this board. So we know, we have confirmation through this acoustic forensic analysis method that there is a shooter at 425 to 450 yards. But we also have another shooter that shows up in this acoustic analysis. This is the bombshell breaking news. Shooter number 2 appears throughout the audio files, and shooter number 2 has a lag time of 0.374 seconds. 0.374 is on this chart, go back here, 0.374 is between here and here, so it's between 200 and 300 yards. So we have a second shooter at between 200 and 300 yards. That second shooter happens to be around 250 yards away from where these recordings are being recorded. Now what's interesting is that this is intermixed in with shooter number 1. So you hear some, if you look at the audio file and you do a very detailed forensic analysis as I have done, shooter number 1, their rounds are there, but shooter number 2, their rounds are also there mixed in. Now you can't hear the difference just with your human ear. Why? Because the time differences are so slight. We're talking about 0.559 seconds versus 0.374 seconds. What is that difference? Like 0.18 something. That is not, like you can't hear 0.18 seconds difference just with the human ear. You have to take the waveforms and you have to plot them in software, and you have to take the time signatures, the time codes, and do the math. And only then can you really tell the distance of the shooter. But that's what I did. And that's why this is called a forensic acoustic analysis, because this is the method, this is how you determine it. And this is based on the laws of physics, the speed of sound in air, and the ballistics of the actual cartridge that was fired. So we know that shooter number 1 in the Mandalay Bay, he doesn't have magical wizard powers. He can't make his bullets arrive more quickly to make them emulate 0.374 seconds, right? Would you agree with that, that Stephen Paddock, a 64-year-old retired accountant, isn't Gandalf? Like, he doesn't have magical powers, right? I hope you agree with me on that. So that means these rounds have to have been fired by someone else, because the rounds from Stephen Paddock arrive 0.559 seconds later. The report arrives 0.559 seconds after the rounds arrive, whereas this other shooter, the report arrives 0.374 seconds later. Now, what does this tell you about where the second shooter is located? Take a look at this map. This is a top-down map. This is Mandalay Bay. This is the concert venue, and that's the epicenter right there, kind of ground zero. And this is the Luxor Hotel. This is the Roman Catholic Shrine, and so on. Now, this blue, I'm going to use these blue dots here, this margin, this dotted line sort of circumference here, this is a radius of 250 yards roughly away from ground zero. What it means is our second shooter has to be located in these blue dots in order for the laws of physics to hold true. Make sense? Now, if I were leading this investigation, I would look at what buildings and possible shooting locations intersect with this blue area that's 250 to 260, maybe 270 yards away. And if you do that, you come up with 3 very interesting answers. Number 1, the rooftop of the AM/PM convenience store on the north side of the venue. A shooter could be on that rooftop and could fire due south into the crowd from an elevated position. That's what this screenshot shows you from Google Maps. Second location, Oasis Apartments, the northwest corner building of Oasis Apartments, located on the southeast side of the venue. Could fire to the northwest, also from an elevated position, and hit the crowd. And that's what this 3D view screenshot shows you. Third location, elevated dirt mound in the construction site located south of the concert venue with a very clear unobstructed view to the north from an elevated position. Now, I don't know if there's actually a big dirt mound still there. That's what Google Maps showed me. Maybe it's different now. Maybe there's been more construction there. But at least from what I saw on Google Maps, there was quite an elevated dirt mound there that could make an excellent shooting position from the prone position. So the first question I have for the FBI is, have you gone around to these buildings and have you looked for brass and have you looked for evidence that shots were fired from those positions? And if not, why not? I mean, I'm just a civilian. I'm just a guy, a scientist. I put this together in about 3 hours using no taxpayer money on a Sunday afternoon just because I found it an intriguing little problem to solve. Why isn't the FBI using this to go look for the second shooter? Now, even better, the FBI can actually pinpoint the location of the second shooter using the following method. FBI can triangulate, and here's how they can do that. All they got to do, I'll use these, all they got to do is go out and find the location of every video that was shot, that was recorded, find those locations, map them on here, and then use the acoustic analysis, get the lag times, compare that to this chart to get the distances of the shooter, draw circles at that radius. On the map here, you draw multiple circles around each video that was taken, and then where those circles intersect, wherever they intersect like this, that's where your shooter is. And there will be multiple intersections, but you can investigate those, or you might get patterns of overlaid intersections if you map 10 videos or 10 recordings. So the FBI can use this method and this chart to identify almost exactly the location of the second shooter. And I've just basically spelled it out. This is how you do it. This is forensic acoustic analysis. And of course, by the way, I've never had any formal training in forensic acoustic analysis, but it's just math and physics. It's not rocket science here, folks. This is just it's like 10th grade, geometry. In any case, the FBI insists, no, there's only one shooter. There's a shooter only from this position at the Mandalay Bay. And he did all the shooting, and he's the only guy. Don't ask any more questions. Don't worry, there's not a second shooter. That's the official story. YouTube is censoring videos that claim there might be a second shooter. Facebook is censoring. Google's probably going to start censoring. The media is mocking anybody who says there's a second shooter. Well, that's because everyday mainstream media people are mathematically illiterate and firearms illiterate, and they don't understand any of this stuff. So they've never seen this analysis, so you can't trust their views on anything because they have no clue what they're talking about. Most of them have never even shot a gun before. They don't even know that rifles expend brass. Literally, they don't ask questions like, hey, where's all the missing brass in the hotel room? That thought never occurs to them because they don't even know that rifles eject brass. That's how illiterate they are in the media. Nevertheless, for the FBI to be correct, Stephen Paddock would have to be a magical man. And that's why I've listed this. The FBI, the magic gunman theory. Can you see that? Is that even on the screen? The magic gunman theory, promoted by the FBI, supposes that Stephen Paddock fires rounds from the 32nd floor of the Mandalay Bay and then teleports himself, i.e. he's a mutant in the X-Men, to another location 250 yards away, fires rifle rounds from that location, and then he teleports back. to the 32nd floor of the Mandalay Bay Hotel, shoots himself in the head to be discovered by police. This is the FBI's theory. You would talk about a lunatic conspiracy theory. That's the FBI's official story. It's nonsense, of course. In reality, because we don't believe in teleportation, right? You don't think there are actually X-Men out there who can teleport, do you? Or Stephen Paddock, maybe he's got magic. Maybe he's Gandalf the Wizard and he can change the laws of physics and speed up his rifle report to catch up with the bullets that he fired. You think he can do that? Because for this number to be true, he would have to increase the speed of sound or slow his bullets using, I don't know, matrix powers or whatever. That's nonsense. In truth, in reality, what is really going on is that there are two different shooters at two different locations. Shooter number one is here at Mandalay Bay, which is why there's a 0.559 second gap, lag, between the bullets hitting the pavement and the sound of his rifle. And then there's a second shooter somewhere around here in one of these buildings, probably in Oasis Apartments or on the dirt mound or on the roof of the AM/PM. Or there's even an elevated billboard right here. Maybe he was up on the billboard stand shooting from there. Who knows? Maybe he was in the Roman Catholic shrine. Maybe he was in this empty parking lot over here. But he was within 250 to 275 yards. That shooter was shooting as well. And that shooter has now been erased from reality by the FBI and the mainstream media that wants you to believe the magic gunman theory, the magic lone gunman theory. So I offer this to the FBI in a sense of goodwill. You know, I'm a patriot. I don't want to see my fellow Americans gunned down. I want to catch this bad guy and the others who aided him just as much as you do. I mean, people in the crowd were reporting multiple shooters. The police radios were reporting multiple shooters. There are eyewitnesses. There's a woman that called the Michael Savage show and said, hey, there was somebody on the ground that was moving toward us. You can hear that on michaelsavage.com. There's so many eyewitnesses who were reporting a second shooter that it would be insane to dismiss them all. I mean, I've heard explanations, oh, there's echoes. Well, guess what? This acoustic analysis eliminates just echoes. This is a timing issue. If you believe in the speed of sound and the laws of physics, you have to understand there's a second shooter within 250 to 275 yards away. So this is solid forensic acoustic evidence. And since, I mean, a lot of law enforcement organizations aren't familiar with how to do this, I'm willing to volunteer my time to help them understand this. I'll help the sheriff's office or the Las Vegas PD, or I'll even help the FBI in this case. I'll walk you through this. I'll teach you how to do this. I'll show you the waveforms in the software. I'll show you how to do this analysis if you're really seriously interested. But, you know, don't waste my time. If you're sitting there talking about, oh, there's just one lone gunman and he's a teleporter who can violate the laws of physics, then, you know, I'm not going to waste my time and walk you through this because you're not going to take it seriously. If you really want to catch the shooters, the multiple shooters, and get to the bottom of this, you got to first honor the laws of physics. You got to understand the math. You got to understand ballistics. You got to understand speed of sound. You got to take a closer look at the audio files. The signals are there. You know, it's not just noise. The signals are there. I can show you how to extract those signals out of that noise and get to this conclusion. So that's my goal. That's my aim. I want to catch this bad guy and those who are helping him as much as you do. I want to catch this second shooter. You know, this guy's dead. What about shooter 2? And was there a third shooter or a fourth shooter? We don't know. But I know for sure there was at least a second shooter. We need to find out who that is, right? It's the only way to honor those who were killed here, all the innocent people killed here. You're going to dishonor them and eliminate any possibility of a second shooter because of a political narrative being pushed by the FBI? That dishonors all the wounded and all the dead. We need to get to the bottom of this, and we need to use good science to do this. And speaking of science, by the way, you know, I put this whole thing together in about, I think, 3 hours. This is not that difficult to put together. If I had the resources of an FBI investigations team, I could pinpoint where that shooter is coming from. The FBI has the resources to do this. And I'm just one guy. I got this far by myself on a Sunday afternoon. The FBI could take this the rest of the way, and they could nail the actual location of the second shooter if they had the political willingness to do that. So that's my analysis. I offer this in the interest of helping to catch the actual perpetrators of this heinous crime. We want to get to the bottom of this. We want America to be safe again. We want to be able to attend concerts without being shot at. And so we need to look at all the data, as I have done here, and not just dismiss whatever you don't like because you're the FBI and you have a political narrative to pursue. That doesn't fly in America anymore. Sorry, folks, doesn't fly. You know, we citizens, the independent scientists, independent media publishers, you know, firearms enthusiasts on our own, you know, we're not stupid people. We can figure this stuff out. We understand ballistics. We understand math. We can do acoustic analysis. We can look at maps. We can pull all this together. We can do the work of like an entire investigations team in Washington, which is usually highly inefficient, wastes a lot of time and money. But we can do this very quickly because, you know, we're citizens who really are compassionate about this, and we want to use our knowledge and our good science to get to the bottom of this. So that's what this is all about. You can help me in this. Share this video, get it out to as many people as possible. Analyze this. Are there other shooting positions that I missed here? There might be. What else is 250 to 275 yards away from ground zero? You tell me. You might find something that I missed. Is there any evidence of bullets going in a different direction? If he was shooting from the Oasis Apartments, bullets would have been shooting to the northwest. That would have lodged certain bullets in property on the northeast corner of the Luxor. So you would want to look there and see if you could find bullets. Bullets, not brass, but bullets, expended bullets stuck in things on that corner. That would tell you that a shooter was here at the Oasis Apartments, wouldn't it? So you just got to follow the laws of physics. Or what about, are there bullets found on this construction site here or some of the buildings at this location? Because that would tell you that the shooter might have been shooting from the roof of the AM/PM convenience store, right? So just follow this. I mean, do the math, use logic, use physics. We can get to the bottom of this if we work together. We, the independent media, are the only ones asking real questions about this at this point. The mainstream media, you know, not only are they illiterate when it comes to math and physics and firearms, they're ordered what to say every day. They don't do any actual journalism anymore. They're not investigative journalists. They're puppets and prostitutes for the official narrative. And that official narrative is an absolute lie. So help us conduct this investigation, you know, and check out naturalnews.com and check out shootings.news. Some of the other great websites out there covering this are Gateway Pundit, SGT Report, you know, the Daily Sheeple, and others. A lot of people covering this. So support the independent media, support our analysis, share this video everywhere, and add to it. Let's see what we can find out. Let's see if we can bust apart the fake narrative of the FBI, or maybe help law enforcement find more evidence that they can follow up as leads and get to the actual shooting team that was responsible for this heinous crime. That's all I ask. That's all I want, is to get to the bottom of this. But thank you for watching. Mike Adams here, the Health Ranger, editor of naturalnews.com, as well as publisher of shootings.news. I thank you for your attention. Hope this all makes sense. Take care.
Okay, so that's that video. A lot of questions still remain unanswered about this incident. Because of the changed timeline, we no longer know why the shooter stopped shooting. Last week we were told that it was because the security guard in the hotel caught him and engaged him, and so he was busy trying to stop that. But now we don't know. So he shot for a while and then killed himself, apparently. But we don't know why that happened. So he set up all these cameras everywhere. He looked like he was sort of prepared to engage the police in a final shootout, I guess. So that's why he set up those cameras, right? So he would know they were coming. But then before they got there, he sort of killed himself. And now this man, this scientist, has put out a video that I think deserves a close look. And I hope that that the FBI and other law enforcement will get a hold of the calculations and the spreadsheet that he says that he's willing to provide, and we'll check his work and add whatever information they have, and see if what he has is valuable. It seems to me that deserves a close look.
He's a credible guy, Mike Adams, the health ranger. I know him from the health side. He's really the largest natural news publisher online. More people go to his website for health and natural news than any other website.
And this video's got 300,000 plus views now.
Yeah. He's probably got that amount and more of people that subscribe to his naturalnews.com information. I've gone there many times, and yeah, he's pretty credible. He's not just some Joe. He does his research, at least in the area of natural health. I didn't know he was into firearms. That's very interesting. He's a patriot. That's my respect for him has gone up. I already respected him before watching that, so I think he's very credible. He knows what he's talking about.
But as he said, there are many things that the FBI needs to check. He said that needs to check to see if there are any bullets lodged in the Luxor Hotel or the property around that to indicate that there might have been shooting from the I think he said the AM/PM, I guess at the supermarket over there. And you know, I would also, if I were a reporter covering this, I would like to ask the FBI how many guns were used, actual guns were actually used
in the hotel
in this shooting. And so there are two things: the number of guns that you found in the hotel that had been used, because there were a lot of guns there, but I don't think all of them were actually used in this incident. In fact, maybe just a few of them were used.
Impossible, right? Because it was rapid fire.
Well, yeah. So one thing is how many guns in the hotel were used, and then second is what about the bullets that you got from the bodies of the people who were killed or injured?
Right.
Do they match? Do all of them match the guns that were in the hotel room?
Right.
Or did you get some that don't seem to match? And that may be difficult to answer because depending on, maybe some of a lot of the bullets may be degraded so much that they can't really tell, but at least some of them. So did they find any bullets? Have they found any bullets that don't match any of the guns that were in the hotel room? That's one thing that I would like to ask. And as you said, they need to go all around there checking to see, where the bullets lodged, the fences or the stage, for example, I imagine, or other places to find all the bullets that they can, and try to match them.
Yeah, where a bullet enters a structure, you can tell where it came from.
Right. Yeah. You can tell. Yeah.
Standard.
Yeah.
What comes to mind too is that when the first shooter stopped shooting, I guess the second shooter stopped. So sounds like it might have been choreographed.
Well, that's another. Yeah, that's another question, I guess. If we don't know why the first shooter stopped, we also don't know why the second shooter stopped.
Yeah.
If there was a second shooter, it's a pretty good theory, but I don't think it's been confirmed that there was a second shooter. But there is certainly a very strong indication now that there was a second shooter. His work has to be analyzed and confirmed by someone else before I can really say for certain that there was a second shooter. But yeah, if there was a second shooter, why did that second shooter stop? That's.
I don't know if anybody's talked about. You had like 23 to 40 different ones.
Yeah. Well, 23, I think, in the room. And, now the fact that the security guard was shot before the incident began, and apparently he called down both on his radio and on a house phone. Now, I'm not sure why he had to use both. Why would a security guard use a house phone to call down, hey, there's a gunman up here? But also in the Mandalay Bay has a policy, I think I already mentioned this, not to allow their security guards to carry weapons. Obviously, that's I don't know if I want to stay at Mandalay Bay now, if I ever go to Las Vegas, which I probably want to. But there are just many, many questions. So some people are saying, hey, if he was shot first, maybe he was an accomplice. That's also a theory that some people are putting forward. That's all. There are more questions now than we had last week, and fewer answers, seems, the further we go.
But how can a guy use 23 different guns?
Well, he didn't.
He didn't.
Yeah.
So how many guns did he use?
Yeah, how many guns did he use? That's what I'm asking.
Was
yeah.
there a break in the shooting,
Mhm.
or was it basically nonstop?
Well, no, the Twitter video that I showed on the morning right after this happened showed that there was a shooting and then stop and then more shooting and stop.
So
and then,
enough
yeah.
time to pick up another rifle.
Yeah. And there were two windows. And why were there two windows? Now there were two rooms, but the two rooms were interconnected. There was a suite, and so he was going, I guess, from one. Assuming and okay, let's believe for now that there was only one person in that room. He was going from room to room, but why two windows?
You could have had guns positioned at one window.
Yeah,
Just walk over and pick up.
walk over and pick up. Maybe so. Yeah. So was that the situation? You know, that they found. So there, and also the brass in the room. He mentioned the very beginning. The photographs that we've been shown don't show any brass. So are there other photographs that do show brass? So that's what we'd like to know.
That's the expended
brass
from the bullet.
Yeah, the cartridges. So obviously, if you shoot that many times, there's got to be a lot of brass lying around.
Right.
You know, like at a shooting range.
And that brass, in theory, should be around where the second shooter may be.
Well, in the hotel room, I mean.
No,
so
but if there is a second shooter on a mound or the AM PM, there should be brass.
That's what this guy was saying. Yeah, you had to go around there, checking to see, going around that circle, checking to see if there's any expended brass lying around, as well as looking for the expended bullets on the opposite end of that brass. So there's a lot of questions, and especially though I think Ann Coulter was pointing out that the media seems strangely reluctant to look at the details of this incident, and it's much too early to come to any kind of conclusions, I think, especially given the large number of questions that remain unanswered. I hope that someone will take him seriously, someone in FBI or someone in law enforcement will take him seriously and take him up on this situation. We need to know more than anything else, we need to know if there was a second shooter or more shooters, because if there was a second shooter, he's still out there. And
be planning the next attack.
Planning the next attack, also walking around with a lot of information on what's going on here, what this whole thing was about, and how, what was Stephen Paddock trying to do, and maybe there was an organization involved in here. If two or more shooters were involved, and that would indicate some kind of an organization. We'd like to know. Yeah. All right. That was a very interesting video that we showed the entire thing, because I think it's very important. But let's take a break now, and we'll come back with other news from a Chinooka perspective.
Car Arms, Magnum Research, and Auto Ordnance. The Car Firearms Group. With a diverse product line that blends American craftsmanship with cutting-edge technology. It's no secret why gun enthusiasts choose Car Firearms Group. From the Desert Eagle and Baby Desert Eagle made famous by Hollywood. The history of the 1911 and the Tommy gun. To the best in compact concealed carry. Car Firearms Group is not only the first name in personal defense, it's a name that has earned the respect of gun enthusiasts around the world. Concealment, innovative technology, value, accuracy, and history. Car Firearms Group. Made in the USA. Visit car.com today. Car Arms, Magnum Research, and Auto Ordnance. The Car Firearms Group. With a diverse product line that blends American craftsmanship with cutting-edge technology, it's no secret why gun enthusiasts choose Kahr Firearms Group. From the Desert Eagle and Baby Desert Eagle made famous by Hollywood, the history of the 1911 and the Tommy gun, to the best in compact concealed carry, Kahr Firearms Group is not only the first name in personal defense, it's a name that has earned the respect of gun enthusiasts around the world. Concealment, innovative technology, value, accuracy, and history. Kahr Firearms Group. Made in the USA. Visit kahr.com today.
Welcome back to the King's Report for Wednesday, October 11th, 2017. We're in the 8th year of Chungi, the 8th month and the 22nd day on the heavenly calendar. Well, the U.S. Media is still full of stories about Harvey Weinstein. I don't know if it's Weinstein or Weinstein. Do you happen to know?
Steen, I believe.
Steen, I believe. Okay. He was such a powerful figure that his downfall is... big train wrecks attract a lot of attention, right? So that's what's happening here, it seems. And on Drudge, we have a bunch of stories. Magazine says 3 women accuse Weinstein of rape. Paltrow, Jolie casting couch abuse. Criminal charges, ? Wife walks. His wife was decided after 10 years that she didn't want anything to do with this. Ronan Farrow says he was threatened. How NBC killed the bombshell story. Tina Brown, volcanic rage erupts from raw insecurity. Lindsay Lohan defends him. She's a former child star, right?
I'm not exactly sure.
I think she was. I don't want to. Yeah. A newspaper says Harvey hires lawyer to discredit victims. After a delay, Clinton and Obama condemn. Apparently, Clinton's statement was exactly 38 words long.
Yeah. Somebody said Bill Clinton, one of Bill Clinton's victims, said this: his Harvey's behavior mimics Bill's behavior.
Yes. Yeah, so I don't know, but Hillary has been here before.
Except Hillary didn't walk.
She didn't walk, yeah.
Like George.
And actually, I was surprised. I always assumed that as soon as he, quit, retired from the presidency, I thought that she would divorce him. But she hasn't. I'm not sure what's going on there. Maybe she thought he still would be useful for her to become president.
Yeah, it's all about whether somebody's useful to her or not.
And Harvey Weinstein's wife as well, I think. He's no longer useful. And apparently this is the reason that all this is coming out so suddenly, because the New York Times apparently had this story way back when, more than 10 years ago. Mm-hmm. But at that time he was powerful enough to kill it.
Yeah.
I need to cough here. Let me see if I can make this cough button work. I can't.
It just goes to, I think there's, what kind of struck me about this situation is how many women refused to go along with his advances, which I kind of said, yeah, good job. You didn't succumb, even though you're 21, 22 years old, and there's opportunities to advance if you give in to his sexual advances. Many of these women coming out said they ran out of the room. They said absolutely no. So that was somewhat encouraging. I'm sure there's many others that didn't.
Yes.
That are not coming forward.
Yes. And they may be waitressing somewhere.
Yeah.
Yep. And,
or they could be top movie stars, And they made their way up. A lot of them made their way up through Harvey into the big screen, even though these few women did not take the advances. I'm sure there are many that did take his advances and are now stars.
Yes.
I'm sure a lot of that will be coming out
Yes.
next month or so. Anyways, it's somewhat gratifying to seeing these mighty satanic figures falling. It's some gratification there that these people, these false icons, these false gods, how mighty how what's that saying? The bigger they are, the mightier the fall. This is a fall from grace, and this is justice is being served, and it's coming out through through the media, which is, I think, the time in which we live. More and more evil is being exposed, and people who used to be able to get away with these kind of shenanigans or evil deeds are no longer going to be able to do it.
Yeah. But the thing is that he's a kind of a has-been, and so
people are jumping ship.
People are jumping ship because he lost power. But
right.
Even better if he had been caught during his heyday. And there are other people who are still doing this, and they're not getting caught. I don't know, maybe this will embolden more people to resist such offers and temptations. I don't know. But as you said, if there are people who have become great movie stars as a result of giving in to these temptations, these offers, then maybe the opposite will be true. I don't know. But
I think technology is playing a huge role in today's, in terms of exposing evil. People could have recording devices on them. They go into a hotel room with a Harvey-type figure, and it's all being recorded. You have to be... if you're an evildoer, you got to be very careful these days.
Yes. All right. So Harvey's perils, and apparently he's gone into rehab now. So we pray for the people who are in rehab with him, I guess, that they are not exposed to this kind of a thing. I'm not. Of course, that rehab, of course, is a place where the Hollywood people always go when they get caught doing something like this. Let's look at some other news. The Harvey story is salacious and all, but let's look at what is actually going on in the world. The U.S. soccer team fails to qualify for World Cup. I guess the news is that we actually care. That's
a lot of people do, actually.
Yes, they do, and that's the news, because it used to be that no one cared about soccer. Right. Now, when the U.S. soccer team fails to qualify, people care. It used to be that, of course, the U.S. didn't qualify. How would the U.S. soccer ever qualify for the World Cup? That was maybe 20 years ago, but now it's news when they don't qualify. Used to be that it was news when they did qualify. So that's progress. That's progress. I hope you can take hope in that. The brain exam when Vegas shooter shows no signs of abnormalities. Why did it take so long to stop him? Girlfriend added to travel watch list. Questions linger. Confusion grows. Yes, that's true. Killer's home was broken into. So that's another thing now that we have to answer. Why was that? Who did that? What were they looking for? Surprise from supervolcano under Yellowstone. And of course, it's the supervolcano that could simply end it for all of us in a very quick way. Yellowstone volcano eruption coming in. This is in the New York Times.
Kind of just shows how little control we have over events of nature.
Nature's power is huge.
Yes.
Beneath Yellowstone National Park lies a supervolcano, a behemoth far more powerful than your average volcano. It has the ability to expel more than 1,000 cubic kilometers of rock and ash at once, 250,000 times more material than erupted from Mount St. Helens in 1980, which killed 57 people. That could blanket most of the United States in a thick layer of ash and even plunge the Earth into a volcanic winter. Yellowstone's last super eruption was 631,000 years ago. It's not the planet's only buried supervolcano. Scientists suspect that a super eruption scars the planet every 100,000 years, causing many to ask when we can expect such an explosive planet-changing event. The answer to that question, scientists are seeking lessons from Yellowstone's past, and the results have been surprising. They show that the forces that drive these rare and violent events can move much more rapidly than volcanologists previously anticipated. The early evidence presented at a recent volcanology conference shows the Yellowstone's most recent supereruption was sparked when new magma moved into the system only decades before the eruption. Previous estimates assumed that the geological process that led to the event took millenniums to occur. To reach that conclusion, Hannah Shamlu, a graduate student at Arizona State University, and her colleagues spent weeks at the Yellowstone's Lava Creek Tuff, a fossilized ash deposit from the last supereruption. There, they hauled rocks under the heat of the sun to gather samples, occasionally suspending their work when a bison or a bear roamed nearby. So we expected that there might be a process happening over the thousands of years. So the time scale is the blink of an eye, geologically speaking. It's even shorter than in the previous study that found out another ancient supervolcano belief. So I guess the message is that the supervolcano could erupt. The process that leads to its eruption is much shorter than we thought. And so who knows what may happen. All right, so yeah, that would solve a lot of problems. But anyway, let's not go there. But yes, God is in control. Dubai police patrol streets 16 feet above the ground on hoverbikes.
Yeah, there's another article in China where they're using robots for crowd control.
Yeah.
So I think this is emerging technology about surveillance and keeping demonstrators at bay, and anybody who wants to rebel against government will have to deal with this kind of technology.
Yeah, this is the 1984 and these sort of dystopia movies that we have where you always have the police sort of running around and like that.
Exact opposite to what the king has been talking about, where police officers should be like used to be in what was that program, Gomer Pyle, where the sheriff is like your neighbor down the street.
Yes,
and,
yes.
Promoting, a sense of community with the job of being a police officer and taking care of the elderly and helping young kids and being a role model of a good citizen. That is rapidly disappearing all across America. Everywhere you go now, the police is a military presence and a force to be reckoned with, a force that should be feared by the common man. And I think this is, even in small towns, you see this beginning to happen with dark-colored vehicles and unapproachable policemen, policemen with a much more tough attitude, not this friendly fellow citizen that's keeping peace, law, and order in the community, but somebody that you should tremble as they walk by. And I think this is a very dangerous trend that's happening.
Yeah. All right, let's take a break now, and we'll come back with more news from a Chonic perspective.
Car Arms, Magnum Research, and Auto Ordnance. The Car Firearms Group. With a diverse product line that blends American craftsmanship with cutting-edge technology. It's no secret why gun enthusiasts choose Car Firearms Group. From the Desert Eagle and Baby Desert Eagle made famous by Hollywood. The history of the 1911 and the Tommy gun. To the best in compact concealed carry. Car Firearms Group is not only the first name in personal defense, it's a name that has earned the respect of gun enthusiasts around the world. Concealment, innovative technology, value, accuracy, and history. Car Firearms Group. Made in the USA. Visit car.com today.
Welcome back to the King's Report for Wednesday, October 11th, 2017. I'm Tim Elder, here with Greg Knoll. I didn't introduce you in the beginning, did you? Yeah, people were wondering who you are. And we're here looking through the news this morning, and we covered that very interesting video about the possibility of a second shooter in the Las Vegas incident, a massacre there. And really encouraging law enforcement to take a strong look at that. The fires in California are really quite serious now. The number of dead and missing are going up, and I think more than 1,000 structures have now been burned. What's happening there is really very tragic, turning into a very tragic situation for a lot of people. That's again the power of Mother Nature, because I guess for a long time the policy was not to put out any fire that burned, and so a lot of underbrush developed, and now this is happening. 11 dead as wine country fires burn at least 1,500 structures and forced evacuations, says here on the sfgate.com.
This one says 17 dead.
17 dead?
At SF-Gate.
Tuesday update, 15 dead. Okay, yeah, so this is...
up there.
Okay, yeah, so I guess they hadn't fixed their headline yet. Starting in the middle of the night, the fires hopscotched across neighborhoods, raced across fields, and jumped freeways. Wind gusts up to 70 miles an hour pushed walls of flames nearly 100 feet high, throwing embers ahead like hot fingers into strip malls and subdivisions. Many people who fled the surge had enough time to grab car keys, perhaps a pet, but not much more.
And 70 miles an hour, that's a high wind.
That's a very high wind, yeah. That's I think it might be in terms of hurricane, that might be a category, at least a 1, maybe a 2, I'm not sure. And some didn't get out. Sonoma County Sheriff's officials said 7 people had died in that county. 2 people died in a blaze in Napa. State fire officials said at least 1 person was killed in Mendocino County and another in Yuba County. In addition, Sonoma County officials received more than 100 reports of missing people as of Monday evening, said Scott Alonso, a county spokesman. I think Drudge was not exactly linking to the most recent story here, because right, here we go. 17 dead, 200 plus missing now, towards the bottom here. Okay, and the worst air quality ever recorded in Bay Area. High winds to return. 10 minutes of radio horror. So the number of victims, dead, missing, evacuated, all this is going up all the time here. Yeah, okay, this is updated at 12:41 a.m., about 7 hours ago. So we hope that that situation can be brought under control as quickly as possible. Elsewhere in the news,
All of this should be leading us to pray more and to get right with God, right?
Yes, that's the most important thing. Yeah.
Yeah, judgment on a lot of different levels happening here.
Yeah. You're one person I watch a lot on YouTube calls it spiritual fitness. That this guy says that you never know when your last day will be. So always say things that you need to say to your loved ones, and be right with Christ. This is the active self-protection channel that I like to watch. This is what.
Well, yeah, it is all these hurricanes and floods and fires and threats of war. It does create this kind of feeling of insecurity that human beings are not invincible as we like to think that we are. We like to think that we're in control, that we don't have to rely upon God for protection and help. And so I think all of this is the silver lining of disaster is that people can begin to take a deeper perspective on life. Puerto
Rico is still suffering from the effects of Hurricane Maria, and a lot of people are still without power. Again, this shows the power of nature and the need to be ready for things that can come. The New York Times has a reporter down there covering the situation, and covering the situation of patients who are trying to get medical help.
It's true. If everybody had a bug-out bag like the King has been strongly emphasizing for, a year or two, fully stocked bug-out bag in your car, bare minimum, then if a fire comes, a flood comes, disaster, hurricane, you get in your car, you go, at least you have something. You can drink clean water, and you have the ability for food for a few days. It makes a lot of practical sense.
Yes, I think a bug-out bag plus at least a half tank of gas.
Yeah.
Keep your gas tank at least half full.
Right.
But and the San Juan mayor was saying, "Oh, we're being forced to drink creek water here." But I guess the answer is, well, be prepared to drink creek water. have the filter that will allow you to drink creek water and pond water and whatever else the kind of water comes along.
Without water, you don't live too long. Especially out west, it's a desert, and there's just not an abundance of water everywhere.
New York Times is saying that nearly 3 weeks after Hurricane Maria tore through Puerto Rico, many sick people across the island remained in mortal peril. The government's announcements each morning about the recovery effort are often upbeat, but beyond them are hidden emergencies. Seriously ill dialysis patients across Puerto Rico have seen their treatment hours reduced by 25% because the centers still lack a steady supply of diesel to run their generators. Less than half of Puerto Rico's medical employees have reported to work in the weeks since the storm, and federal health officials said. So they're looking at the health situation there in Puerto Rico following Maria.
That's another situation where if there's some kind of emergency, and if you don't have your meds, you could be in serious trouble. If you're on dialysis, another reason to get your health in.
Yes.
In the days of final judgment, make sure that your immune system is strong. You're eating healthy food, because if you're in a situation where your health is already compromised and a disaster comes along, it's more than likely you're not going to be able to make it. If you don't have access to hospitals or pharmaceutical drugs, you're not going to be in a position of strength, and you're going to be really suffering.
There's an article about the Saudi revolution. Somehow, Saudi and revolution don't really go together, do they? But apparently, there is a revolution going on in Saudi Arabia right now. We heard that the women are going to be allowed to drive in June with a chaperone. But anyway, this is a revolution from the top. Has little room for critics. The reports of Bloomberg this morning. For few would describe Muhammad Ali Arefeh as a defender of women's rights. In one infamous video, the Saudi cleric explains exactly how a man should beat his wife. But when the government decided to allow women to drive cars, up popped Al Arefeh on state TV to say what a good idea that was. A modest woman will remain modest whether she drives or not, he told the nation. Other religious leaders, once hostile to any departure from the traditional ways, joined the chorus of approval. Wow. The kingdom's powerful preachers were getting with the program. A couple of weeks earlier, they'd seen what happens to those who don't. More than a dozen prominent clerics, activists, and businessmen were arrested and accused of pushing an extremist agenda. I guess it's good to be king, I guess. Under Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, Saudi Arabia is seeking to reintroduce itself to the world, opening its economy to global business and its society to practices once deemed un-Islamic. At the same time, the limited space for criticism and debate that once existed in this absolute monarchy is being stifled. The kingdom has become more repressive than in the past, said James Dorsey, a Middle East specialist at Singapore's Nanyang Technological University. It's a break with the era of King Abdullah, who often sought to forge consensus, he said. The Salmans do not tolerate any criticism whatsoever. Excuse me. Saudi factions used to compete for influence at the royal court. Conservatives carried much more weight, and we're allowed to sway over social policies and education. Liberals were sometimes appeased with small steps toward reform. Inertia ruled. Things began to change when King Solomon succeeded his brother Abdullah in 2015. The transformation accelerated and the circle of decision-making narrowed with the rise of Solomon's son to a dominant position in the government. Prince Mohammed envisions a vibrant society with more women in the workforce and more entertainment options. His economic program is based on a radical shift from public to private sector and diversification out of oil. He cited the disruptive innovations of Silicon Valley like Facebook Inc.'s Mark Zuckerberg as role models. So let me get this straight. You're going to be free, and I'm going to kill you if you don't. They're trying to build this is the interesting thing, and China has tried this before, where you just try to mimic the external aspects of successful Western societies or affluent Western societies without really understanding the underlying ideology or consciousness or philosophy. Mm-hmm. And so here, they're, on the one hand, of course, it's good that they're going to allow women to drive. And they're finally making progress in that small step in the way. But and they're also trying, I guess, to create a society that is more in line with the standards of the West. But at the same time, they're restricting debate and stifling debate and basically suppressing or jailing people who refuse to go along with this. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of contradictory, isn't it?
Yeah, I think the Cheonggyeok culture that the king and the Kukjinim are advocating is freedom of speech, and debate is healthy for society.
Yeah.
Opposing views are good.
Yes.
Yeah.
See here, the next sentence says, ultimately change on this scale can only come from the top down, some supporters say. Mm-hmm. But I don't think the change is genuine change unless it comes from the bottom up. Mm-hmm. And I think that's the big difference of what we have here in Cheonggyeok. That is the, even if, people who resist change are also allowed to speak. Mm-hmm. And people who do say strange things are also allowed to speak. So, you need a very firm hand to see this through without provoking chaos. But you see, we welcome chaos. Mm-hmm. And I understand why, people think that chaos is bad, but it makes you vulnerable to attack and everything like that. But I like chaos because out of chaos comes new things. Mm-hmm. New things can come out of chaos. And when you have chaos means that human beings are not in control. That's what chaos means. That means that God is in control. God is in control when you have chaos, and He has a lot of room to work when you have chaos. So I think chaos is a good thing.
And I think a lot of innovation is spawned from chaos.
Yes.
To find better solutions, better ways of doing things rather than just conformity and accepting a certain path.
So anyway, we'll watch and see what happens in Saudi Arabia, what their final result will be, what kind of society they come up with in the next few years. But if they're resisting chaos, I predict they will invite chaos.
Well, that's why they don't like social media, like Facebook, and because that's where chaos is oftentimes created.
That's right. Yes,
we've experienced that on the micro level.
Although Facebook is trying to restrict chaos, right? We don't like that. They're censoring chaos. Mm-hmm. All right, we've come to the end of our broadcast time, and thank you for joining us this morning. And hope that you have a good day. Plenty of chaos, and God bless, Godspeed, and may His kingdom come.